at 80 miles an hour, which is impossible. So we know skinwalkers don't exist outside of our imagination or Native American lore.
Are you going to say Native American imaginations too?
I said lore.
I know, but isn't it the same thing? If they don't exist outside of our imaginations, then wouldn't that also be Native American imaginations?
I would trust native lore more than I would our imaginations.
Okay, so to recap, you are saying skinwalkers exist only in the lore of Native Americans who have seen them and who have been them, but the honkies driving through Arizona or whatever can't witness them personally because they don't exist if it's in our imagination. I got a couple of interesting skinwalker stories for you, Christian.
I love me some skinwalkers.
Or as you lovingly titled them, flesh peddlers at one point in our YouTube history. Go back and find that. It was pretty gross and uncalled for.
I meant flesh pedestrians.
You did.
Just to clarify.
This first one's called Sonora Desert Skinwalker, and it's by Javier's.
There's more than one Javier in this?
Apparently there's multiples.
Oh, personalities. Multiple personalities.
Doesn't sound like you to be so judgmental right off the bat. Interesting.
I wasn't judging. I was stating.
Wow.
Or theorizing.
Theorizing is a better term for that, yes. Anyway, this says, I was a firm believer in science and an atheist until I saw what I saw. There are two possible explanations. One, skinwalkers exist. Or two, someone has created a human-dog-coyote hybrid. None of them are credible, but I saw what I saw. I was not tired, I was not tripping, I was not drunk. I have looked and researched for any plausible explanation, and the only one I find credible is that there are things in this world that my current science does not explain. They may be explained someday, but they exist. So this person was driving near the Sonora Desert, Baja, California. The car was a Land Rover, but a model that I have seen lots of in my home country. This is not important, but I remember the car vividly. This model was not common at all at the U.S. Completely useless information for this story. Absolutely useless. And that's fine, I guess. Set the stage, you know? The night was thick, and we were too. What? Me being the passenger. The driver was a 42, more or less, Ukrainian-born dude with no gods except his wife. Haha. We had to stop because there was a dog or coyote in the middle of the road. The closer we approached, slowing down and honking, expecting the dog or coyote to run off, the bigger it looked. We halted as the thing was not moving at all. He was not facing us, just looked like he was sleeping. He suddenly turned his head and looked to us. Mind you, there were no more than 10 to 15 meters between us and it. Its face was not a fucking dog face. It looked like a bread. No, it didn't. It didn't look like, that's got to be breed. It is breed. My glasses aren't working. Oopsie. It looked like a breed of a Neanderthal and a dog, if that makes sense. It stared at us and suddenly stood up on two legs. It looked like a werewolf, as those portrayed at the movies, and was no less than 2 meters tall.
6 feet for you people
6
out there.
feet for the majority of our audience.
For the Americans.
For the majority of our audience. Then the driver did the most sudden and fast U-turn I've ever seen and bolted us the hell away from there. The thing did chase us for some time and obviously didn't succeed, but it was fast. The whole time we were screaming fuck in many versions of it. I can't remember and continued doing this for at least 10 minutes. Then we continued until the next gas station where we refilled the tank. It was maybe 50 kilometers away. Fully speechless. After an hour and a half, I think, we began speaking. We both agreed that what we saw was the same thing. I had nightmares for months, not just for that encounter. My guess was, and still is, that if things like the one I saw that night were real, maybe there are other things I have always considered legends and fairy tales that could also be. And that amazes me and scares the shit out of me at the same time. I've never heard a description like that for a skinwalker.
Neither have I. Especially the Neanderthal part.
Neanderthal dog mix. Ugh. No thanks. Creepy.
I don't know, man. It's weird. It reminds me of like that recent video that came out where they see something on the road, weird crawling across it. I can't remember what the video is, but
It's recent? Or you saw it recently?
I've seen it recently. I don't know how recent it is, but it's definitely that thing definitely doesn't seem like whatever it is, it'd be a skinwalker, but the scene he sets up sounds similar.
The next story, and then underneath it were a bunch of comments of people who had really similar experiences witnessing what they claimed were skinwalkers. And almost all of them, well, I'll get into it a little bit after. So I'll read this next one, and then I'll kind of touch on what the commonality aspect of that was. But this next one is a late night drive in Arizona, and it's by SPR Dave 70, or Spur Dave, or Super Dave, probably. Well, you know what? Who gives a shit? Let's go
Super
with that.
Dave.
It's Super Dave. In our eyes, you're Super Dave.
Super Dave was a thing probably before you were born or around the time you were born. I can't remember where it was. It was like a late night show or something, talk show.
Well, it sounds riveting.
It wasn't.
I believe it. Anyways, Super Dave says, my wife and I were driving up through northern Arizona on Highway 89 between Flagstaff and Page. Yeah.
I know the area.
Well, there you go. Maybe you're a skinwalker.
I am not.
Sounds like something a skinwalker might say.
I like to walk in my skin, but...
Okay. It was about 1 a.m. as we were on third shift at the time and often drive at night to avoid traffic. That's the move. I saw a few sets of eyes glowing in my headlights a little ways up the road, so I let off the gas, slowing down to avoid hitting an animal in the road. When we drove by, we saw several dogs, or coyotes, on the side of the road, and I hit the gas and drove by. After we passed, my wife said one of them was running next to the car, and I looked over and saw it as well. Probably 20 feet off the shoulder of the road, I floored it and looked over, and it stood up on its hind legs. That's the only way I can describe it, and kept pace with us for a couple seconds before turning away from the road and disappearing. This whole event probably lasted no more than 10 seconds, but it was seriously the most terrifying 10 seconds of my life. This was probably 20 years ago, and we still rarely talk about it. Now that is the common instance that you see with these things is there's probably 4 or 5 different comments underneath that of people saying, I also, and a lot of them were in Arizona as well, because there's I forget what it was. There's some reservation out there that people had mentioned, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it right now, but...
Is that where the Navajo reservation is?
You are asking the whitest person on earth, and that is not a great idea for this subject, and I refuse to answer because it's probably going to be wrong.
I think there's more than one reservation in Arizona.
Yeah, there's probably. That would check out. But there's plenty of comments that said they were doing the exact same thing. You're driving, and you see this thing running alongside the car, gets up on 2 legs, and then after keeping pace with you, regardless of how fast you're going, there was someone that said as a kid, he was like, he saw something, and he didn't mention it to his dad who was driving, but he happened to look over and he saw his dad's speedometer like slowly creeping its way up to 80 miles an hour, not mentioning anything to his son, but eventually said the thing like just turned off and ran away. But it's fascinating. I don't even know what I would do in those situations. I know there was one of the legends was saying that you don't drive in that area or with an empty passenger seat. So if you have someone in the passenger seat with you, then you're good. But otherwise, if you don't, it's pretty much like inviting something to join you.
Oh, modern fairy tale.
Wow.
Don't drive with an empty passenger seat.
Yeah.
Get a blow-up doll.
What you do in your free time and with your own personal finances is up to you. I would not personally recommend that. But to each his own, you know?
I mean, if you want to live, have something in that passenger seat.
I suggest a buddy.
Buddies don't want to be driving around Skinwalker territory.
Yeah. Do you remember that story we had where there was like a tapping on the window?
Yeah.
That was another thing I saw in these comments is people were saying that had something to do with the empty passenger seat as well. Is like you'd hear like a tapping on your window pretty much while you're going full speed down the highway, which is terrifying in and of itself. But yeah, I don't know, man. There's a lot of interesting stories that come out of that neck of the woods, and I'm a believer, you know?
Technically, that doesn't seem like woods to me. The 2 places we've talked about sounds like desert.
That neck of the dry lands. Is that better for you?
I mean, Flagstaff, that area could technically have woods, but
wow.
Either way, it's like this thing is running alongside, and like, oh, you think you can go fast? I'll get up on 2 legs and run next to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
the idea of a coyote or something on 2 legs is very unnatural.
See, when I imagine it, I imagine Usain Bolt running next to you, smiling at you because you think you can get away. And you
also unnatural, yeah. You're like, what the hell is Usain Bolt doing out there?
What's he wearing?
And why are people bringing him back into the spotlight after years of nothingness?
Because he was fun to watch. I just can imagine that smile he would get when he just tore everybody up. The Skinwalker. It's like that as it's running next to a car.
I mean, yeah.
At 80 miles an hour, which is impossible. So we know Skinwalkers probably don't exist outside of our imagination or Native American lore.
Are you going to say Native American imaginations too?
I said lore.
I know, but isn't it the same thing? If they don't exist in our outside of our imaginations, then wouldn't that also be Native American imaginations?
I would trust Native American lore more than I would our imaginations.
Okay, so to recap, you are saying Skinwalkers exist only in the lore of Native Americans who have seen them and who have been them, but honkies driving through Arizona or whatever can't witness them personally? Because they don't exist if it's in our imaginations. You see, you've set yourself up here, and I'm really interested to see what your answer is, because you're going to get some backlash from a specific group of people, whether it be the honkies or the other ones.
I tend to go along with Native American lore more than I do modern lore, because modern lore has brought us things like Slender Man.
Slender Man is fake, and everyone knows that.
And that's what I mean. Or Dog Man. It's also fake.
But there's no stories of people being like, I saw Slender Man. That's all creepypasta. So there's no one claiming to, I mean, outside of two girls that tried to kill their friend in the forest or whatever, there's like zero stories of people being like, I know it's supposed to be fake, but I saw it. No, everyone knows the difference between a story and a reality.
Do they, though?
Yeah, most people. If you're not like 8 years old and trying to kill your friend in the forest, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would have to disagree with you there. I think we all have our moments where we don't experience reality.
Do you or do you not believe in Skinwalkers?
I do not believe in Skinwalkers at this point.
It's really the only answer we needed, to be honest. I was trying to trap you with talking down about Native American lore, but I think I don't know, man, there's way too many stories of these things, and a lot of them share interesting similarities with one another. And even that episode we did with, I'm trying to remember what episode number it was, but you remember the Skinwalker deathbed confessions or whatever we did?
Right.
That really long ass story. There was so much information that you're like, this is fascinating stuff. I don't know. I think stories that are passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation hold some type of truth.
Well, here's the thing that gets me is a lot of times it's considered kind of like a witch that becomes a Skinwalker.
Yeah. A bruja.
And I'm not sure
Don't at me. I know that's the wrong term. It's fine.
I don't know how a witch all of a sudden develops the capability to run at speeds that maybe only a cheetah could run at.
Well, that is the fascinating part of it, Christian, is that you're turning into, it's a spiritual thing at that point. Like you are dealing with dark forces.
I mean, we like to blame everything on dark forces. I get it.
Here we go.
But it just seems you can't just be a human one day and magical the next. This isn't Harry Potter.
You can, though. If it depends on what you're dealing with. If you're dealing with something like shamanism, witchcraft, dark forces, spiritual entities, things of this nature, you're not just a human. You know what I mean? Like, this is full-on shapeshifter type shit. Like, this isn't some run-of-the-mill, like, Bewitched or something like that, where it's just a wiggle of the nose and ta-da! Like, you're dealing with some dark shit out there. And that's why the people that, like, even in, like, Native American cultures and stuff like that, like, you don't even bring this shit up. You don't talk about it. You don't even want to think about it to attract this thing to you because it's that serious. And that's why I respect them enough to believe the lore, to understand that it's real, but apparently not enough to not talk about it. But I'm sorry, it's fascinating, you know?
We're in Alaska.
What am I supposed to do? What, are they going to come get me in Alaska?
They don't like cold weather.
Do me a favor, you know? Do me a favor.
Bring the warmth.
Yeah, that as well.
I don't know, man. I can't. I think people are seeing something.
Oh, they're seeing something, all right.
It's just, if it's a something that actually exists in this world, and I just struggle with it. Again, it's like Bigfoot. I struggle with the fact that something like that might be alive today.
Because you don't want it to be alive today.
No, I want it to be alive. That would be fascinating.
That would be terrifying, is what you should have said, but that's fine.
I carry apples every time I go hiking for the Bigfoots.
For the Bigfoots.
Sasquatch.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm not taking apples to Skinwalker just in case I'm wrong.
Yeah. Hey, I brought you something.
Yeah.
Oopsie. I've made a poor decision, as is tradition on this show. What do you folks out there think? You think Skinwalkers, the real deal? Folklore? What? Sound off in the comments. You know what I mean? Do it. Right now. I'm waiting.